In this video, we're going to start building the background of our magazine article. We're going to build rectangles, we're going to create swatches, and we're going to create gradients. But before we do that, let's take a look at our Pages flyout panel here. If I click over here on Pages on the right-hand side of my screen, I get this dialog box here, and you can see here that I'm on page 1 because page 1 is grayed out. And if I scroll down, I can see my entire document. If you can imagine that you had a magazine, this would be your cover page. So this is my cover page here. And if I scroll down, I can see here that if I double click on 2, it's going to take me to page 2. This is easier to see if I control minus and take a look at the entire document. And I have page 3 here, which is this page, and then the last page of my magazine article here. And if I double click, that's going to take me there. If at any time you want to navigate through your pages, all you need to do is double click. It won't actually look like you've changed pages unless you actually have something on those pages. So let's begin doing that now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start recreating exactly what I created previously in the interactive sample that I demonstrated in the first slides. So let's first begin by just creating a simple line. If you look over here on the left-hand side, just beneath the type tool, you'll see the line tool. And what I want you to do is I want you to just click and then go ahead and click, drag, and drop and let go. But you want to make sure that you hold the Shift key. By holding the Shift key, it's going to prevent you from doing any kind of diagonal. You want a solid straight line. Now, before clicking off, those of you on a Mac, the default will always be a 1-point stroke on everything that you create. For those of you on a PC, there is no default stroke. So what you want to do is you want to go over here to the stroke panel, and you want to make sure you change the weight to 1 point. Now let's take a look at this. I'm just going to move right here to my selection tool and click off. I can now see that I have a black line. But now I want this black line to be exactly like I had it in the demonstration. And to do that, I want to change the X height here in the options panel. So you want to make sure that you're clicked on the actual line so that you can make those options changes in your option toolbar. So the first one I'm going to change is this one. So I'm going to go 0.95 inches for the X height. And the width is going to be 2.3125. My L is the length. It's going to be 4.2995. Now when I hit enter, this is exactly the same placement, size, and location of the line on the sample document. Now I'm ready to create a rectangle. The first rectangle I'm going to work on is a dark blue rectangle. So I'm going to go over here and just make sure that you're on the rectangle tool and not the rectangle frame tool. There's a difference between the two, and we'll explain that shortly. I want to be the one that doesn't have the X in it. The rectangle frame tool, same as in Photoshop, what I want you to do is click somewhere here, click, drag, and drop. Try to keep it close to the edges. And then what I want you to do here is I want you to select the X and width height accordingly. The X is 1.925, the Y is 0, the width is 6.577, and the height is 11. Okay, now we're ready to do something interesting. Before we go any further, we're going to create a swatch for this particular item. Let's go ahead and do that. If you go over here in Swatches, click on the flyout panel here. Let's take a look at what swatches can do for you. If I scroll through, I can see that InDesign provides me with a number of preset swatches. But actually, I have a corporate dark blue, a corporate light blue, and a corporate orange that I want to create. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new swatch. Go over here to your fill. You want to click the fill, which is the top one, not the one with the rectangle around it. That's for your stroke. So you want to double click on the fill tool. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to dial in my corporate colors. The dark blue corporate color is 100 in CMYK, 55 for magenta, 0 for yellow, and 75 for black. Here is my new color. So if I just tab out, you can see the corporate color here. Now what I want to do before I click OK is add to CMYK swatch. So when you click add to CMYK swatch, it's going to create the swatch here for you, and I'm going to say OK. Now if I scroll down, there is that corporate swatch here. And just to make sure that I don't mix it up with all the others, I'm going to double click and I'm going to rename it. So swatch name, uncheck name with color value, and now I can rename this dark blue. And I'm going to say OK. So now I have this rectangle and it's now colored dark blue. For those of you on a Mac, you want to make sure that you go into stroke and that your weight for your stroke is set to 0. For those of you on a PC, the weight default is 0 points. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a light blue rectangle. So I'm going to go back over here to my rectangle tool, and I know that it's roughly this size on the left-hand side of my page. And to make sure that I have the exact dimensions, I'm going to go up here into my options panel. X and Y should be set to 0, and the width should be set to 0.3 inches. Height should be set to 11 inches. And once again, I want to fill this, but this time I'm going to fill it with my next corporate color. So I'm going to go over here. Right now you can see that it's filled with nothing. That red line there in the fill box means that there's no color in there. I'm going to double click and I'm ready to set my next corporate color. In this case, the corporate colors are 9.5 for cyan, magenta is set to 0, yellow is set to 23, and black is set to 0. And if you tab, you can see that this is my new color. Before I click OK, I'm going to add to CMYK swatch. I'm going to say OK, and then fly out your swatches panel, double click on the new color, change the name by unchecking the name with color value, and call this light blue, and say OK. I now have a dark blue and a light blue swatch, and you can see that I can change colors just by clicking on any of the other items in the swatches box. It's going to change the color there. But now what I want is I've got my light blue and I've got my dark blue color swatches. Now the next box that I'm going to create is a rectangle going from left to right. So now I'm going to go over here to my rectangle tool again. I'm going to click, drag and drop, maybe about that size roughly. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the placement of this to 0.5 inches for X. Y is going to be 1.5518. Width is going to be set to 7.5. And height is going to be set to 0.4297. Now I'm ready to fill this, and I want to go back into my swatches. So if you have it collapsed, click on swatches, scroll down, and I want this to be my light blue. Now you'll notice that my line here that I created earlier is on the bottom of my layer. So if you take a look here, I've got this rectangle and then I've got this line. I want to send this rectangle to the back. So I'm going to right click. So make sure you have the big rectangle selected, right click. And here what I can do is I can click on arrange, send to back. By doing this, I can see that I have the black line on top now. It's not very easy to see because I have such a dark blue. You'll also remember that in the actual sample, we actually had a gradient blue where it went from dark blue here to light blue on the center. That's the next step. We're going to create a new swatch, but this time we're going to create a gradient swatch. If you take a look in your swatches panel, so once again, if you don't have it open, click on swatches, click on the down caret in the top right-hand corner, and select new gradient swatch. The new gradient swatch dialog box will open, and you can see here it defaults to linear type, but if you don't see linear, just click on the down caret. And then here in my gradient ramp, I can see that I always begin with a white stop color and a black stop color. The one that I want to change is my second stop color, the black one. So I'm going to click in the black little box there, the little black stop color box, and it's going to open up my different swatches. If you don't see swatches, you can click on stop color and the down caret here to make sure that you have it on swatches. I'm going to scroll down, and because I created a swatch already for dark blue, this is the one that I want to create. And you'll notice that my ramp goes from white to dark blue. That's exactly what I want here. I want it to go from white to dark blue. So I'm going to say OK. And now what I want to do is I want to apply that swatch to this item. So I'm going to click on the item, and I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of my swatches and click on New Gradient Swatch. And here I can see now that my gradient swatch has gone from white to dark blue. If you don't see New Gradient Swatch here, you want to click on your down caret next to the swatch views and make sure that it says Show All Swatches. If you find it difficult to remember what a New Gradient Swatch is, double-click once again on the word New Gradient Swatch, and you can change it to dark blue gradient. All right. So now I have the items that I need for this first page. Whenever you want to take a look at what you're working on, go ahead and do a Shift W. So I've clicked off my page. I'm going to do a Shift W. I can now see exactly where my document is and what it's going to look like without any guides. Click Escape at any time to return to the standard view.